Today we're talking about both case-based and problem-based learning. They're both very similar techniques, and I find they are methods to help the students truly gain a mastery of the material. Now, case-based learning first. Typically you divide the students into groups. Groups receive a well-defined case. Maybe it's a paper that they need to try and copy or mimic or something like that, or maybe it's a well-defined scenario where they can go off and they explore different options. Students then work on the case, and finally they report their findings either as a presentation to the entire class or as a report to the instructor. Now, problem-based learning is almost the exact same thing. Still, you start out with groups. You give the students a problem. It's a little bit broader and typically allows for more flexibility from the student standpoint. Again, the same last two steps are the same. The students work, they report on the problem, and then they report at the end. For these methods to be successful, there are several hints that you should do. Now, it's very easy for these to blow up in your face and not actually work out well. It's also very easy for them to exceed your expectations. Now, the students have excellent learning outcomes. General rules. You need to make sure the cases or problems have sufficient complexity. You don't want trivial answers. You want them to have enough options that you can give everybody the exact same case and different groups go about it in different fashions. The whole idea is that you want the students to create ownership of the problem or the case. You want them to feel like they have a stake in it, that they can take the problem, that they can modify it, that they can pursue it in the direction that they want. And that, with the ownership, the students now want to create not just a good solution for you, but they also want to create a good solution for them to say they can do quality work. And that allows them to really develop the mastery. And if you get them to create the ownership, make sure you give them enough time to actually pursue it in a fashion that they want. Now, at the same time, since there's so many different avenues, the faculty member must be involved in the groups. They should be meeting with the groups, they should be talking with the groups, they should be finding out what they're doing, and providing general directions to make sure that they are pursuing the project in a manner that is successful for the students. Now, general problems that can occur from this. One is, most people tend to use class time to do this, which can diminish other learning outcomes. But typically, students will meet together in class, the faculty member will go around, will help people provide class time for this, but in some sense, you've got to make sure that the groups are working or else you're losing class time to facilitate not a very good learning environment. Okay? Anytime you group classes into groups, the A students go together, the B students go together, the D students always go together. Me personally, I don't like that. I think it creates a lack of diversity, both on the bright side and just general diversity in other settings. So I will typically randomly create my groups. Now that obviously creates problems as people have conflicts, and I will let them dissolve the groups and everybody has to do the work on their own if necessary. But anytime you create groups, there's always going to be a few problems. Other things that occur. The idea is to have them gain ownership, and if they tend to procrastinate, then you have problems because they didn't have enough time to gain mastery of the material. I think this is why a lot of these scenarios in case-based and problem-based learning, you get class time to do this. This makes sure that the faculty members going around, making sure they're doing assignments and things like this, and making sure that they're actually progressing. And so that's one way that people get around it. You also have a problem that one group might study topic A and another group might study topic B, and so you lose a little bit of consistency in learning outcomes across the entire class. And so that causes problems. So frequently, faculty will bring the class back together occasionally and say, all right, here's stuff that I need to cover to make sure that we learn what we need to learn. And in general, it tends to take a little more activity and involvement and time from the instructor. Not just class and time. You may have to meet with people outside of class. You may have to have extra discussions. So it's one of those methods that I think is very time intensive. The steps to problem-based learning and case-based learning are fairly straightforward. It's not very hard to see how to do it. Now, actual implementation successfully, I think, is very challenging, and so I want to provide a couple of my different experiences with it and things I've seen through the years of my teaching. So the first time I really got introduced to this was when I was at Stanford. I taught it. There was actually a cases class where they gave you cases. In one case, the instructor gave us a case to read this paper and figure out how to deal with a different scenario. Now, it was about moving dirt in the Australian airport, trying to optimally do it, and George Danzig was teaching it, so it was actually really cool, and at the time, he really liked uncertainty. So instead of taking their model, we built a model that had uncertainty in it with probabilities, and I learned more about uncertainty modeling and things like that than I ever had in any other class. Now, after that, Stanford had a class called Projects. Now we went out on a project, we consulted at a local company, we built together a model, provided it back to them, and so as you look at projects, almost all the senior design classes people do would be viewed as project-based learning. Company comes in, provides a project, the faculty member kind of mentors it, things like that, and so all that stuff becomes project-based learning. As you look at it, all my research students, every master's thesis, PhD, everybody I've advised has been one-on-one project-based learning. Here's the problem, how are we going to pursue it? We go back and forth and things like this. And so fundamentally, I view the idea of problem-based or case-based learning almost as a research type of environment. Occasionally, I will give it out to some of my classes, but for the most part, I tend to not do it because I find that I lose out on learning consistency and the amount of time it takes, and the amount of frustration, and just the size of classes I have. I don't think I can keep enough control of the students, and I will tend to do it more in graduate classes than I will in undergrad classes, because I need to make sure of different outcomes, and in grad classes I feel like the students should be a little better prepared to go off and tackle problems on their own. Anyway, I do think problem and case-based learning are two of the best methods for students to gain a mastery. And it's because they take ownership. They get to take the problem as they want. They get to work hard. They find it fun to actually tackle a, quote, real-world problem and try and solve it. Anyway, I wish you all the best as you try and implement case-based learning. And thanks for watching my video.